Thank you for being here, everyone. I'm going to do my best to host a panel on amazing people who have amazing things and wisdom to share with us. And I'd like to just start by offering each of you the microphone to share the one thing or the several things that you think every woman should know about health and their health.
Start with me.
First of all, I need to ask Sally, would you like to go first?
I'm happy to go first. I'm Sally, and I was going to call elder privilege since I was going to go last, so I can answer that question. What was it again? I want every woman and man to know to trust their own body, to listen to the messages that it tells you. And if you see a practitioner of any variety who doesn't listen and you don't feel comfortable with, then find somebody else. And if you've got concerns about your health and you're just brushed off, gaslighting is very common in a certain profession that I won't name. And so if you're minimised and so just go home and learn to relax, then go and find somebody else because you know you don't have anybody else.
Yes, but can I interrupt and ask, is this recorded?
It is recorded.
Yeah.
It's got all sorts of funny pictures.
Right.
We didn't call you any names. Or Holly.
So what I want every woman to know, or my advice to every woman, is to put yourself first. It's so common as women, as mothers, as partners, that we put everybody else's needs for our own, and then what results is we are burnt out, we are fatigued, and then if we then become unwell, who's going to look after everyone else if we're then not well? So my advice is to look after yourself, take time for yourself, and to nourish yourself. It's also so common to, these fad diets or this cleanse or how to lose weight and how to do this. The end result is meaning that you're not going to be, giving your body the nutrients and the nourishment that you need to live and thrive. So yeah, look after yourselves first.
Well, okay. And if you don't, and you are burnt out and run down or have some kind of illness, what is that trying to tell you as well? Like, listen to yourself. And as Sally was saying, if you don't get guidance from someone that you're seeing, seek someone else if you need that guidance. And quite often we're being forced to take time for ourselves because we tend to neglect that.
I've found a lot of people that come to you because they're not happy with the system or whatever, but they also want to be looked after naturally. But I even tell them when they're coming to us that we don't take over the part of the doctor. They've still got to look after themselves. It's got to go back to that, and they need to do their research. I was just listening in a group of D, a lady that was actually went to a dietitian and. All the troubles, all the troubles that she was having. She knew all these answers. She knew all these things that she was doing for her own pain. And when you went to the dietitian was telling her something completely different, And even with D, I think it was with your father, wasn't it? You were saying when you went to a dietitian. So you've got to know your information. You do need to do your own research. We just lost so much of that. One of the reasons I teach so much, because I want people to take it back for themselves and start looking after themselves. It's you just give it to the pharmaceuticals, you give it to the doctors, you give it to the herbalists and the naturopaths, you give it to platforms. Start taking it for yourself.
But we want you to fix this.
That's your job. I think learning to listen to your intuition, learning to listen to your body, learning to hear what it is saying to you is so important. And for me, I also think learning to understand your menstrual cycle, learning to understand the intricacies of that, where you are in your cycle, what it means, what it brings, how you can care for yourself, how you can bring in cyclical self-care is just so important, because it's intrinsic to our bodies, it's our guidance system. Why not allow it to teach us and nurture us and guide us in our health and how we care for ourselves?
Thank you for that. So what I heard was responsibility for our own health and prioritising our health as really the first line. I am going to ask another question that I thought of. Probably asked me to think of questions to ask these amazing people, but I'd love you guys to think of a question, and the next question will be from one of you guys. So something that you'd like answered about women's health. And so my question is, can you share an aha moment, a realisation around your own personal health and your own personal health journey? Don't have to start here.
Sure. Before I even got into this natural health world and began studying herbal medicine, I was younger. I was a lot younger. I was a late teen actually, and ended up craving these green vegetables. And at the time, I'd been diagnosed with a blood disorder, and needed a blood transfusion, and was supposed to go on these pills to help with folic acid and whatnot. And I just noticed I was craving silver beet and all these beautiful green vegetables, and then I was like, oh, okay. I felt much better the next day and had a blood test, and I didn't need to go on this, regime. And this is being a late teen, in the early 90s, I think it was. And just that intuition kicked in, and that was an aha moment for me. And knowing that I could always find something in nature, and just, with animals, our body will direct us to what we need as well. And that was a big, I've had a few aha moments, but that was the first one that I can remember.
I think I'll go back to the moment that first turned me into natural therapies. I turned me on to natural therapies, and I did talk about it in my talk today when I talked about tissue salts. So as a kid of the 50s, or born in the 50s, so we didn't know a lot about natural health. Mum was always a really good cook, so there's no she was bloody fussy eater. I don't know how she put up with me, which is very tolerant. But I always had lots of tummy troubles as a kid, and as a kid, I was skinny, but I always had a bloated belly, and I was the one in the family. I had two older sisters. The middle sister could burp on command, and I could fart on command, which amused all their friends because they're much older than me. And I went on with that thinking that was just part and parcel of my digestive system. We didn't know about food intolerances back then. My health as a teenager wasn't bad. I had my appendix out when I was 16. Then when I was in my mid to late 20s, I met my partner of 46 years, and he used to go and see a biochemist, in Sydney, and he used to take a lot of things called tissue salts. And I was, take a Panadol when you're sick, or take a Codra or whatever, and just go on with things. Never sort of doing anything about my belly. So we were going to visit friends of his that are way up north in New Zealand, in the North Island, and it was a long bus trip, hours and hours and hours sitting on a bus. Now I'm sitting on this bus, and sitting, not being able to fart, Well, I could have farted, but that's not socially acceptable. And as I said before, particularly for women, not acceptable to fart on a bus with all the other passengers. So my tummy was getting bigger and bigger, and I must have looked like I was about 4 months pregnant. As before then, I would often have people asking me if I was pregnant because my stomach was so bloated, and that was just, oh, so embarrassing. And I was always so embarrassed about my stomach. So the bus pulled up into this little country New Zealand town, which back then had fabulous health food shops. Billy hopped out, raced into the health food shop, and came back with a bottle of tissue salt, which was mag phos, magnesium phosphate, which is for muscle cramping and spasming. And he said, suck on one every 15 minutes. And so I did, and my tummy went down, and I didn't have to fart, and I didn't have any pain. And so that was my catalyst to then me now being a herbalist for 21 years. I didn't graduate till I started studying in the 80s and didn't finish, so I went back and graduated when I was 50. And I use tissue salts all the time in my practice, and so that was my aha moment, because weird stuff really works, and it changed my life.
I want to talk about the time of menopause, because I've been a herbalist for a while before menopause hit, and I thought I was going to be fine, no problems. Menopause is going to be easy. Always telling people what to do. This is what's really important with having herbalists or naturopaths that have actually gone through the life cycle. We understand a little bit more. So when I got to, I was always been a very busy person, adrenal junkie sort of thing. So busy. And when I got to menopause, I thought, well, this will be good. I won't have too much trouble. Oh my God, I had a heat, and off with the blankets, on with the blankets. And I had a lot of trouble with menopause, and I was trying to, because I was an adrenal person, and really the adrenals got to take over once the ovaries can slow down. So, and also I had a little bit of a sweet tooth, also all these little bits and pieces of liver. You got to look after all these areas. I always think when you get to menopause, it's like everything is taken away, and it's really you've been looking after yourself all these years. What have you done to your liver? What have you done to your adrenals? What's your diet like? So it's almost like those lovely hormones are there to protect you, so make the best of them while you've got them. But basically, I've found lots of things to help me. I never got onto the doctor's treatment, but I do understand people that do go on that way because they get desperate. But it's really, I love the Herb St. John's wort. It really helped get me through. And it's interesting now that they give antidepressants for menopause to help people get through menopause. So that's a really interesting thing. So, but I learned so much by going through menopause. It's gone now, it's a long time ago. But I did learn a lot, and I'm now able to help people so much more. And I think this is something that we all learn as we go along. When we learn something ourselves, we can pass that information on and help so many more people.
My aha moment was probably when I first went to go and see a herbalist for the first time. I had terrible tummy troubles, I had terrible IBS, and it was really with sitting with her and understanding that it was my responsibility to start looking after myself, my responsibility to look at the food that I was eating. That really kind of woke me up to, this is what I need to do. I can't run to somebody else to fix it for me. I can ask for help. They can walk alongside me. But at the end of the day, if I choose to eat something that's going to upset my tummy, that's my choice. So that was also my beginning. That was also where I decided I was going to become a herbalist, because she was the most amazing practitioner. But she really did teach me to take responsibility for my health and for understanding those causative factors. I was going to talk about my, digestive issues when I was younger as well, but more recently, I was vegan for 8 years, nutritionist off the back of that, because I wanted to help people to be as healthy as possible on a vegan diet. And then when my 5-year-old daughter had a mouthful of cavity, tooth decay, led me to further research and to realise that a vegan diet and plant-based diet is not the best diet for a child's growing development and needs.
Had a whole workshop on that topic because it is a very big and controversial, very topical. I'm so glad I asked that question. For me personally, that was really wonderful to hear those stories, and just about how, I think, how personal, how individual our own personal journeys with health feel, but in fact, there's a lot of common ground, and we're all sort of travelling along the same route. Is there somebody that has a question that they would like to put to the panel, particularly? I've got lots of others, you don't have to feel pressured, but if anybody has something in particular.
I have a question, but I don't think it's that great, but I want to ask it.
Ask it. Ask it.
I'm just wondering, at which point in your herbal studies did you gain confidence to become a practitioner, or is it something that you just did anyways because you got a piece of paper or whatever, and then slowly over time you gained confidence to do that, or you felt good enough inside yourself, all right, I can do this, and I'm going to turn a corner, I'm going to start helping other people now rather than it being a passion or a hobby, which I'm sure, like it still is, but I can't articulate myself that well, so I hope you understand.
That's a good question. Do you want to summarise and repeat the question just so that
So that everybody can hear, I think it's a lovely question, a valid question. At what point or what made the difference and made you confident to be able to become the healer?
I think that imposter syndrome can come up so frequently for so many of us. And look, I'm probably much newer in practice than some of the very knowledgeable women that I'm on here with. But I think you're always learning, and you know, there's so many great resources and textbooks and colleagues that you're always continually learning from. And there's also, I think that there's, you know, when it comes to herbs and coming up with prescribing a herbal mix for someone, you know, there's not one right answer, one right herb that's going to be the only thing that's going to help that person. So I think that it's, you know, a continual learning journey, and yeah, we're always on that.
Okay, what point did I feel able to move ahead? Okay, so I'll add on from what I was saying before. When I was younger and found out I had a blood disorder and a blood transfusion, and back then the cure for this particular disorder was to remove the spleen, and I refused. And they said, oh, you'll be dead by the time you're 21. You know, it just blows up and explodes. And so, yeah, I think it was my mid-20s, and I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get a bit, you know, unwell. And I ended up having surgeries, and a fair few surgeries, which is great. Like, I'm here today to tell the tale, so I really do appreciate modern medicine as well. And during that whole time, I was always researching and looking at books, and just loved plants and couldn't read enough. I could always make a cure from the cupboard or the garden or somewhere, and I just got to a point where I worked on stage a lot performing, so having multiple surgeries, it takes a long time to heal, and I got to a point where I'm like, I think I'm actually going to just change direction in the career I was going down. And yeah, my late father encouraged me, if you're going to do it properly. And so, yeah, that was it. And you never stop learning.
So many different things I could say to this. So when I did graduate, not quite 50, I've been putting it off for so long, becoming a herbalist, and I finally got my piece of paper and I couldn't wait to get started. I still cling on using practice, and that's why I read that poem out today, because it resonated with me so much that there's still always so much to learn. I still suffer from imposter syndrome. One thing that really helped me a lot was listening a number of years ago to two well-known herbalists, two male herbalists, and I'm not speaking of them because I say that I adhere to everything they say, but one of them is Mills and anything with Mills and Bone, for those of you who are familiar with the names. And Simon Mills was an English herbalist out here talking, and somebody asked him a similar question, and he said, every patient is like the very first, because you've never seen that person before, and you don't know what they're coming to talk about, what their situation is. So when he said that to me, that gave me a lot of confidence in myself. There's somebody here this weekend, and I've seen one of her family members twice, and they didn't come back again. I felt like I'd failed them, and it was awkward for me to see her again. And I saw her yesterday, and she spoke to me and said how much I helped her son just by listening to him. So that relieved a lot of that fear. So you might see somebody only once, but you don't know the impact you've had on that person. You might see them once and they don't come back again, and years later you'll bump into them in the street. And I say, oh my God, what you said, and often it's not the herb, it's what you said to them. You said it completely changed my life. So you never know. But one thing I encourage practitioners to do, and the people at SG have talked about it too, something a business coach said to me, to start a thing called a fabulous file, and it's for anybody. And you keep a file of digital, soft copy, an old shoebox with things in it. Anytime somebody says something that's positive to you, that makes you, oh, I did a good job after all, you put it in that fabulous file. On those days that you feel like so it's failure and you've let everybody down and you're never going to be any good, I'm no good, and it could be stage inside, what am I doing here, and I shouldn't be in practice any longer. And you pull out your fabulous file and you go, oh, okay, so I did help that person, I did help, oh, okay. And you pick yourself up and have another go the next day. So a fabulous file, no matter what you're doing, is really good. And it doesn't have to be from patients, it could be a letter your mum sent you, or a phone call you've had with your dad, or a text message you get from somebody. That's a really, really beautiful thing to do, whether you're a student or practitioner or whatever you're doing in life. If it's as a mum, it's for those days you feel like you pick yourself up again. Yeah, wonderful. Sorry, I'm still going. But also remember, I know I don't usually talk about this, I do talk this much, but not on the panel. One of the other things I learned was that it's not you need to get out of the way of yourself, because the person needs help, and for us as a herbalist, the herbs are there to work, and how does that person get the herbs without somebody to do it for them? So I'm just the vehicle for that to go through. And for me to think, it's very egotistical to think that we're doing the work, but it's really the herbs that are doing it. And one of Dorothy's, I'm a Dorothy Hall practitioner, one of Dorothy's quotes is that nobody heals anybody ever. The most you can do is start using the pendulum, swinging the pendulum back the other way through whatever tools you want.
That's a great topic. I actually learn a lot different than a lot of people because I only did correspondence course, and I never had any person teaching me at a clinic or anything. So I was pretty raw. So and I was in my 30s. I had young kids and things, and I actually taught for 3 years through TAFE. And my students said to me, they said, will you please become a practitioner? But I'm like, oh, that's scary. I don't want to be a practitioner. No, yes, you could, but we need somebody that we can go to and get our stuff from. We can't make all these things. So I was busy teaching people how to make it all. And then I actually wrote this thing, I will be a good herbalist. No, I would be good at herbalist, yes. So end up with no, I think, but anyway. I went again and I did it. I thought I could fix everyone with fixed sausage, I remember. I made this fixed sausage, make everyone make their bowels work. I thought that'll be a good thing. But I did find, like the others have said, you listen to the person and they just love it that you can listen to them and you can learn so much off them, and every person's a new person. And you're just learning all the time, and I still feel so inadequate. You know, look at me doing this for 30 years or whatever. So, and I often, I go into other big places with other practitioners and think, oh my God, I don't do all those tests. I can't think like those people. I don't know all that research. But I have learned that I have helped so many people. That fabulous flowers, it's fantastic. Because you always remember the ones that weren't happy. You don't remember all the hundreds that loved you and thanked you very much. You always remember those ones that didn't. But stick with it because they need you out there. They really do. People really need to be looked after. The herbs will help you, and you amaze what you know.
Yeah, the fabulous wild rocks, it really does. Thanks. I have one, thanks to Sally. I couldn't wait to get started. I was so excited that I could go and do this thing and be a practitioner, be a herbalist, be a naturopath, that I did all my clinic hours, I did everything that was required of me, and then I was just out there. And I think that sometimes we have to jump. But I think we need to have practitioners that we can go to who will support us and guide us, mentors, peers, people we can speak to. I think that's very important. Always, not just at the beginning. So I think do it. Yeah. And every day is a new day. Every patient is a new patient. There are patients that come in and they go, oh. And that's all right, because it makes us work and it shows that we still care and we're still passionate and we're still going to go above and beyond for that person because we want to do whatever we can to help and support them in their journey.
Excellent question.
It took so much to even talk out loud in front of everyone here.
Question was really good.
So my next question is, what is the link between our physical health and our emotional, mental, spiritual health? And how do you approach that?
It's such a big question, that one, isn't it? Because, it's all connected. It's all connected. So that's why it's so important to look at, when we're looking at our own health, to make sure that we nurture and consider, ourselves, what's going on externally and environmentally and spiritually, just to, because it's just all connected.
So being in alignment, when you're in alignment mentally, spiritually, physically, you won't really have that many problems, and it can be from anything to a relationship that you're in or a job that you're at and you don't feel in it. You really feel a strong, you're not in alignment at all, and if you continue going against this thing that's so strong, symptoms can start to show up, and that can be, there's so many facets to this, and that's one area. And within yourself, if you're doing something and you really don't like it, there's going to be consequences. But then there's so many areas you can go into in this, and this is just touching on the surface, so I wouldn't say it's just that, what I've mentioned, but that's certainly, a bit of insight.
And I could say I used to have all my talking stick time before I say pass this one straight on. That's a huge question because we are people. We're not little separate boxes of physical body, soul, mental health. They're very complex people. So how that is all connected, I think you'd have to ask the God, G-O-D-D-E sort of terminology, because we don't know the answer to how we're all connected. That's too complex. How you approach helping that is sitting with people and listening to them and using whatever tools you have. And we were joking around before you came along, and I asked Desiree to throw some questions, and she said, give us one word, and I said hope. So to me, hope is one of the biggest things you can give somebody, and often you give that just by letting somebody be heard. And I have a few patients, I'm not by far not a counsellor, but a few patients who almost come to me just for me listening. The herbs are almost secondary, or the flower essences are almost secondary because they've got a safe space where they know they're not being judged, and it gives them hope that, particularly after they've been diminished by the medical profession saying you're fine, just go home and learn to live with it. That was enough tablets for me. Then told that there's nothing we can do with it. Take Stematol and go home and learn to live with it. And then you're a stubborn Tory. You say no, and you look for other answers. So how they're all connected, we don't know that. But yeah, there are ways you can work to help that person in listening and all those beautiful tools, particularly for our essences for the emotional side. Probably never know that there's somebody there who cares.
I think it's one of the reasons we call ourselves holistic herbalists, because we are looking after all the areas. And if you go to a specialist who's looking after the heart, you go to another specialist who's looking after the head, you go to another one who's looking after the gut, and yet all those are together. One of the tools that I love is iridology. I've been using iridology for a long time now, thousands of eyes. And to me, I look at the rave system, I look at all the different systems that go together, and the emotions are shown in the eyes as much as the physical is shown in the eyes. And we can do so much as holistic herbalists, the flower essences, of course, all those sort of things. I use drawing therapy, you use whatever tools you can to try and get that person to understand that whole person. Too often we're just chopped up, and it's just not good.
The division that we experience, I think the division that is experienced in the medical system creates more separation within the individual, really. And in fact, we are whole ecosystems within ourselves, and that's why we need holistic care. All of our aspects need to be tended to, so that we can come back into that relationship with self. Yeah. And we have so many tools to do it. We're so blessed as practitioners that we do have so many tools, from the herbs to the flower essences to body therapy. The list keeps going. So, and we need to be treated as whole and individual so that we can create that integration for ourselves.
So once again, there's a short window for somebody to ask another question.
I'd like each of you to talk about a book or a person that inspired you. Great bit.
Would you like a book or a person with regards to my herbal medicine journey?
Absolutely.
Or something else?
Well, yeah, related to your herbal medicine, absolutely.
There was a book that I read when I was at uni, because I did a communications degree before I went and studied to be a naturopath. And it was the journey of
a shaman, an American Indian shaman, and that book awoke something deep in me that just knew that what I was doing then at university was not what I was supposed to be doing. And that really catalyzed my journey into naturopathy and herbal medicine. Yeah, I think it was a deep awakening from probably lives beforehand. And even my studies were, it was like coming home to be studying herbal medicine and naturopathy. So I feel very blessed that that book crossed my path when it did. I still have it. What was the book? I can't actually even remember the name of it, but it's sitting on my bookshelf. I can see it in my mind's eye.
You might get to share it and put it on Holly's platform.
I can do that. Yes, definitely.
I love herbalists such as Maria Traben. I don't know if any of you know her, Health Through Goddess Pharmacy. I just love those down-to-earth people. I love Juliet de Bacala Levi and all of her animal books and things like that. These are herbalists have died. And the book of Dorothy, I won't take Dorothy all the way from Sally. That's her love. You know, and I've got people now that I use like Kerri Bone and so forth. But I just want to tell you a really lovely one that I listened to. It's a book, but it's also something you can listen to. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass. And if anyone wants to listen to something beautiful, that is beautiful. It's done by an American Indian girl. Braiding Sweetgrass. And it's just so beautifully done. 17 hours of listening. I had a great time in the car. I played it over and over. I just love her, lovely, because she's putting the scientific with the traditional. And I love that way that she's done it. Just don't forget that one.
She's an absolute poet. An absolute poet. You can get it as an audio with her narration.
Someone told me it was free the other day.
You can get it as a physical book as well.
Very graciously let me go through. So I studied herbal medicine the first time in the 80s with Dan Stewart, and then I did it with very, very different chalk and cheese, very yang approach. I then didn't finish with Dennis. I went back to complete my degree. His school wanted me to start all over from the beginning again, and I thought, stuff that. But meanwhile, I've learned that Dorothy's way, which I've been taught to rubbish, I've learned that really, really worked. So I then approached Dorothy, who welcomed anybody who had studied with Dennis Stewart with open arms. Come in! So I started with Dorothy Hall, who's now passed, and completely changed. She's such an inspiration to me. That there are a book that I really love is A Woman's Book of Herbs by Elizabeth Brooke, and that's a wonderful book.
What was that called, Sally?
A Woman's Book of Herbs by Elizabeth Brooke. She's on Instagram now, and she's got some other books as well. But that's the first one I got. An older herbalist who'd been one of Dorothy's first students put me onto it, and I did student training with her. And it's a book. Sorry? Elizabeth Brooke. And I can't remember whether it's Brooks or Brooke. But if you put in A Woman's Book of Herbs, you'll find it. And she's on Instagram as well. So the Dorothy Hall is my big person. Yeah. Lots of books. Yeah, lots of books. And these days I'd say, Nancy Evelyn as well. And Pat and Kerri.
Actually, the holistic herbal.
Hoffman's holistic herbal. Yeah, it's another good one. Yeah.
We could go on.
We could go on and on. Yes, I know. Yes. That's a good question.
Because we don't have those libraries anymore. We don't have the libraries of visitors
with Juliet de Barclay-Levy, as Pat was mentioning. There are some books, and there's also a documentary called Juliet of the Herbs. For anyone who hasn't seen it, you'll love it. And Juliet was a vet to begin with, but she ended up taking off with the gypsies and could treat any animal, woman, man, child, and in any country as well, just be able to utilise the land. And yeah, I really loved her. And I studied a Bachelor of Health Science in Western Herbal Medicine, and I wasn't very satisfied at the end of that, and I went on to do further grassroots studies and did shamanic herbal apprenticeships with Mad Susan Weed in America, and lots of radiology, like anywhere that took my fancy, learning how to wildcraft and make medicine from scratch. Like there's so many ways, and we've all been kitchen witches for a long time, Anyone who loves plants is a herbalist.
If you asked me this question a year ago, I would have named one of the vegan or plant-based doctors, one of their books. But, as I mentioned before, I've had my experience and now going in a different direction. And a book that was really key in helping that was Dr. Stephen Lin, The Dental Diet. And in that he references Weston A. Price's work and his book, which is, let's see if I can remember the full name of it, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And then there's some more words that go at the end, which I just can't remember right now, but they're written over there in the book. Dr. Stephen Lin's book is great because it's a really easy read, and it talks about what Price's research found about traditional diets and the benefits for tooth decay, crooked teeth.
Fantastic. I've got a whole heap more questions, and I'm not sure that we're going to have time for all of them. But I'm wondering about women's rhythms and cycles and how they fit into the health picture. Pat, you already spoke about menopause and that stage, and I'm just wondering if we could have some reflections on that.
I was actually pondering on this one yesterday when I was in Kerri's talk about the bleed on it method and talking about women's cycles, and I came to the realisation that I first came across that information at a Wise Women's gathering 5 years ago, and I was looking at the young maidens who were in the talk and just thinking how amazing and how beneficial it was that they were learning that information at the beginning of their menstrual journey, as opposed to me learning as a 30-year-old. And I now come here with my 6-year-old, so I'm looking forward to her being a maiden and coming and she'll learn from me as well. So I just think it's so important as women to, and I'm sure these ladies are going to talk on it, but to understand our menstrual cycle and understand that we are not designed to perform the same way, the same energy every single day of our month, of our cycle, and that will not give us the best results. But I won't go any further because I'm sure these ladies can talk to it in much more detail.
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah, cycles, learning how to honour them. Kerri's probably going to be a good person to talk about this. So, yeah, a maiden, mother and crone, and we learn so much ourselves, and whether it's pain or even with menopause, hot flushes, and you learn so much and how everything's all connected in the body. And I know for myself, using liver herbs will reduce hot flushes, and there's so many, cycles are cycles, and there's a lot more to it, and it always comes down to honouring the cycle and yourself.
Yes, cyclical awareness was something, I mean, I was personally aware of it because of my own experiences, but I certainly didn't have any knowledge around it until the first wise women gave it myself. And I was keynote speaking, Jane Hardwick Collins was the other one, and there was Jane with all the cycle work that she does, and now I've been really close with Kerri. I learn a lot from her about it as well, and in reading more, and then in looking at the life cycle changes that I experienced myself as, you know, when I reflect back on menopause, I looked with Jane with 30 was mine was really menopause. And so the changes I've noticed for myself, so I've been aware of those, but in terms of working with my patients up until 5 years ago, I didn't bring it in. I did with my daughters a little bit, but not enough, so I think the fact that we are getting a lot more awareness now, certainly when I work with some of my patients I think would have an awareness and they don't, so I'm really glad to bring that into their stream because it makes such a difference. But yeah, it does impact your health. It impacts the way you react to stress. It impacts your monthly lunar cycle. Will impact your immunity. It impacts your energy levels. It impacts your creativity, and then those whole life cycles affect as well. So it is very important to honour them and to learn about them. And I'm definitely not the expert on them, so I'm going to keep passing.
I think Kerri's going to be the best one.
Kerri's question.
We've been all through these, and the major thing that we do as herbalists, we just constantly seeing people with cycle problems. Endometriosis, I can't believe the growth in endometriosis now. You know, like I've been doing this 30 years, and I don't even remember much talk about endo in the early days. I don't know if it wasn't just fans or something, but it's just amazing, and I just wonder how much the pill has got to do with this. Taking the pill that actually upsets the cycles and things, you know. People think they have an ordinary cycle with the pill. And I said, no, stop it all. You're not ovulating. And I think we need to understand a lot more about these sort of things and what they do and how they do interfere with our cycles and things. So we need to be aware of it and what we'll do long term. Have a look at the side effects of the pill. People don't even read that. It's pretty scary. And if you read what it says, what the pill can do to you. So I always wonder how much that actually goes down further. And I tell you what though, I've been looking at a lot of eyes and I constantly see a mark on the ovaries when they've been having the pill long term. You know, so I think it's really interesting how much does it affect everything.
I think that working with our cycles, understanding our cycles, is so important to our health, our well-being, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, it all impacts. And I think the more cycle awareness we have, the deeper our own authority becomes when it comes to our health. But also when it comes to navigating all of those psycho-spiritual gateways, I think that it really is knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and knowing your body and knowing what it is saying to you and why and where you are in your cycle is so important. I think every woman, every menstruator, every girl needs to know these things. It is your birthright. It is your inbuilt spiritual practice. Yeah. So I think the more awareness that there is, the more practitioners look through the lens of the menstrual cycle with the women who are sitting with them, the more informed we can become about how to help, how to support, how to guide. And then also those women are taking that empowerment, they're stepping into their sovereignty because they're governing their bodies. Yeah. I could keep going.
I was going to ask for another question from the audience, but that's just a perfect segue.
Can I just add something really quickly, because we only just briefly touched on it. I just wanted to mention how powerful it can be to work with our cycles for our creativity. You know, that's, you know, something with, you know, when you're in business or if you're just working on a project or personally, just being able to, you know, harness that energy of when we are more creative at particular times in our cycle. It's magic, it's so powerful.
We're just creative all
about
the time.
reproduction.
No, it's about everything.
Yeah, it's not. So I'm just going
But
to.
just say when we're old, I was a bit creative all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Postmenopausal creativity is on
You move.
24 hours a day. All month long. Just reflecting on the fact that given the level of not knowing, the level of ignorance around cycles and the fact that it's certainly not taught in our schools, it's not taught in our medical training institutes. One of my questions sort of how it relates to that. I'm wondering if you could sort of touch on what you think is the most unhelpful or potentially harmful message that women receive about their health from the mainstream medical industry.
I'm just going to take the liberty to answer this a little bit differently and just to more focus on, you know, what's unhelpful for people. That, you know, we're in the world of social media and the rise of influencers, and I just think it, you know, just good to have a reminder here as to be very aware of who you're listening to and taking advice from, and to doing your own research. You know, when it comes to the, you know, mainstream medical as well, don't just take what a particular health professional has told you verbatim. Do your own research, because, you know, especially when it comes to the influencers, you don't know what their qualifications are or are not. They're, you know, these platforms are just so freely available now. So yeah, my advice would be to, you know, do your own research and yeah.
It's interesting. I saw on SBS or ABC last weekend or just recently, and there was it was Miff Warhurst, who's works in, yeah, see, we all know Miff. We all like Miff. We all look up to Miff. And it was with a nutritionist, I believe it was a nutritionist or a dietitian, and it was about the menstrual cycle and her issues. I think it was fibroid she was diagnosed with, and then talking about menopause, and then the specialist on there, who was the nutritionist or dietitian, was going through certain herbs, you know, like cohosh and red clover, and saying, well, there's no evidence, like this doesn't actually work or it doesn't actually do anything, and then going on to the next herb, and clearly they weren't a herbalist or a practitioner that knows everyone is different. It's not, it was a very allopathic way of pointing out, oh, this is for that, oh no, that doesn't work. And it was a little disheartening to see, actually, and a lot of women are going to take that on, and it wasn't bad, but being a herbalist, I'm like, oh, that's not good either. So yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about influencing and social media. So yeah, just to also have your own mind to make up as well, and research and talk to experts in the field, or gather your own information and listen to yourself.
What was the question again?
So what's something that's very unhelpful or even harmful that the mainstream medical system, the messages that the mainstream medical system tells women about their health?
There are a lot. Some of it is about medicalising what you're going through with your cycle, and that it can be adjusted and it doesn't have to be covered over with a blanket. Some of it is, and what's come to my mind recently, is looking, I stick more with old ways of practicing the herbalist, but I do look at blood tests now for some pictures, and looking at somebody's blood test and seeing a thyroid TSH, which is a thyroid stimulating hormone level that's been really way out of whack, and the doctor said, oh no, everything's fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And that woman has been diminished because she knows she's had symptoms that don't seem right, but oh no, your blood tests are fine, everything's absolutely normal. My daughter, who often comes with me to Wise Women Gathering as a nutritionist now, and she had a woman so fatigued, terribly fatigued, been to the GP as the first port of call, had the blood test, everything's fine, you're absolutely fine, nothing wrong with it. Her ferritin levels, which is the stored iron, was 2. But the GP had said it's fine. So don't let I think one of the main things I mentioned before is the gaslighting. Don't let yourself and your concerns be diminished. And don't let a blood test and the results of a blood test define how you feel. Because you are not just the result of a whole lot of pathology lab test results. You're way more than that, and the way you feel is way more than that. So yeah, I'll make that my main message. Don't let blood tests define your health, and don't be put off because they're all normal.
Jesus, so many unhelpful messages, isn't there? I mean, just have a think about antidepressants. This is an enormous growth industry. It's just incredible. And you just got to tick off a few things off with the doctor, and yes, you're on antidepressant, and then there's a whole, on and on and on it goes, doesn't it? It's growing all the time, and it's going with our young ones. Putting the people on the pill all the time, that's another one. But the antacids, it goes on, and but also the doctor's saying, oh, it's all in your head. It's fine, it's all in your head. And then they go, well, where do we go from here? Like, it's my head, what do I do? So, there's just so many, they haven't got time. Doctors have got, how many minutes? 10 at the most? They've got no time to talk to you and treat you as a person. I shouldn't say that sounds very broad, because there's some beautiful doctors out there. There's some really good ones that really try their best, but they are very limited. And they're very limited by time. I tell you what, we haven't got too many in the country. And we just got to understand that the knowledge for ourselves all the time. You've got to be on the ball, guys. Everyone's got to be on the ball, because you can get those damning messages. And I had an old lady come to me the other day. She said, do you know what? I went to the doctors the other day and they didn't look once at me from the computer. They looked at the computer and they just told me, yes, you got to have the more medication. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dowley. And off you go now. She came to me crying. She said they don't care, and that's really important, that's some helpful messages that they don't give the time to care.
I think we're so pathologized. Everything has a label. Fit in the box. Take the medication, be quiet. That I just see it all the time. We probably all see it all the time. And it's just easy to pathologize, put you in a box, medicate you, go away. Then it's not a problem, then I don't have to deal with it. And I think that is really detrimental to women. It's detrimental to everybody. We all need to be heard, we all need to be cared for, we all need to be held, we need to be listened to when we're sick, and there is nothing wrong with that. Also, remember too, a lot of the trialing that they do for a lot of the drugs are not done on women. They're not done on women because it's too hard to factor in our hormonal changes, the cyclicity. So much of the medication that women are put onto has not been trialed for them, and that's a rip, because our hormones make a difference. The cycles make a really big difference to how those medications do or don't work in our bodies. Yeah.
Wow, such wisdom. What a lovely panel. quote virgin. God knows why Holly asked me. But I'm so glad I had such amazing people with so much genuine, beautiful knowledge and such care and commitment that really comes through. Is that before I start crying? Thank you. I've got one last question, which is, what, as a takeaway, what is the first thing that any woman can do and should do and embrace in terms of her health? What is a great first step towards better health?
Yeah, I guess this just comes back to what I mentioned earlier. So just nourish and take care of yourself. First, that's right. Nourish and take care of yourself first. Because, you know, when you're well, then you can look after everyone else and do your parental responsibilities, your partner responsibilities. But yeah, you know, eat well, rest, drink your water. Like the amount of times when you do a client intake with someone and you talk to them about their food and nutrition and they're hardly drinking any water and they're really tired all the time, and it's like, this is one really easy, cheap thing that you could be doing. Just look after yourself first.
I'm pretty sure that was 5 things.
Yeah, well, all of that. What are you feeding yourself? Like, dehydration is a huge one. What are you feeding yourself with your thoughts as well as your food?
I'll try and put all of the different things I'm thinking of into love and respect yourself, and that's your emotional self and your physical self.
I'm going to be so boring, and I'm going to say track your cycle. Track your cycle. And if you don't have a cycle, sync in with the moon. You know, learn to track the lunar phases so that you can nourish yourself, care for yourself, know what you need at different phases. Yeah.
I think simple one is never stop learning. I think we need to learn and remember all these things, and by crikey, it can make a difference.
I'm going to be cheeky and do one more. He often quotes Minnie Meyer, who says, if you fuck up today, lovey, have another go tomorrow, or something like that.
Also, boss of self.
Boss of self.
Boss of self.
And then I'll quote Dorothy Hall, who said, nobody's perfect. If you're perfect, you'll be dead. That's all talking about that.